Hi guys, I'm Greg Howlett, and I want to take a moment today and talk to you about another little thing that'll help your music. Now, last week I talked about the one chord and adding the major seventh, and this week I want to talk about the five chord. This is going to be a little bit easier probably, but it's also very, very effective, and it'll make a difference in your overall sound. Now, the five chord is the second most important chord that you're going to have in your music. It's part of the 5-1 progression or cadence that ends every song and is used repeatedly throughout the song. A typical hymn is going to have five chords all over it. Almost always, those five chords are going to be resolving, normally to the one chord. And that's an important thing to understand because what we're going to do today is we're going to take the five chord that's normally in a hymnal, especially an older hymnal, as a major triad, and we're going to add the seventh to it. So we're going to make it a 5-7 chord, you may have heard that term, or we're going to make it a dominant chord. And when I say a dominant chord, I'm referring to this, a major triad that has the minor seventh added. So not a 3-note chord, but a 4-note chord. The fourth note is the minor seventh, and the way we find that is by going down 2 half steps from the root. Okay, let's take the key of C. In the key of C, your 5 chord is G. Now, in a typical, very traditional hymn, church type situation, you'll normally see a G major triad. However, when we add the major or the minor seventh, we're going to go down 2 half steps down from the root, and that's F, and so we're going to add an F to that chord. All right, so this would just be a G major triad, G, B, and D. A G7 chord or a G dominant chord would be G, B, D, F. G, B, D, and F. Okay, now that we know that, let's talk about how we would apply it to music. When would you apply this to music? I picked up a hymnal before I started this, and I looked through it to see how many 5 chords were in a typical hymn that were just standard triads, and the answer is an awful lot of them. Sometimes you'll see the 5-7, but more often you'll just see a major triad. In 100% of those cases, well, no, not 100%, 99% of those cases, feel free to go ahead and change that chord to the dominant chord, add the seventh to it. It will always help. Some of you are going to say, Greg, hold on, you forgot about this scenario and this scenario. And you're right, there are a few scenarios that would make it not as good of a thing to do. Maybe even the wrong thing to do, but it's so rare that for the sake of this video, I'm just going to say when you see a 5 chord that's just a triad, change it. Add the seventh to it and make it dominant. Why do we do that? Well, it helps the function. And when I say that, I'm talking about how the 5 chord interacts with other chords around it, especially the one chord that follows it. Adding the seventh creates a tritone interval that creates instability in the chord, which makes it resolve harder. Okay, it makes it want to resolve in a more satisfying way. This is just a regular G triad moving to C, a 5-1. Okay, so that's just the normal sound. Here is, there's your with the seventh added. Okay, so listen the first way again. Here's the second way. Hear the difference? Fairly significant difference. The seventh adds to the picture. So we want to do it. Now, I'm going to be working today with one of those songs that has a lot of 5 chords as triads in a typical hymnal, Trust and Obey. And we're going to walk through this for a few minutes and add the sevenths to it. We're in the key of F. Every time you see a C chord, that is a 5 chord, right? So we're going to change all those C chords that are triads into C7s, which means we need to add a B flat. Okay, the minor seventh is 2 half steps down from the root. The root is C, go down 2 half steps, and you have a B flat. So all the C chords become C7s. And let's go through. I'm going to play slowly, and I'm going to play these both ways, just as triads and also as 7 chords, and you'll hear the difference. Okay? There's your first 5 chord, a C chord. Here is the triad. Okay? Here it is with the change to C7. 7 to 1, just a triad to 1. did that backwards. That's just triad. 7, dominant chord to 1. Big difference. Let's keep going. Okay, again, there's just a triad. Here it is, it's a 7th. Hear the difference? Pretty big difference. Okay, another 5 chord. I'm going to play here a C7 instead. Here it is just as a triad. Here's a 7. The second line is like the first line, so I'll hurry through that until the end. Here's a 5 chord. If I play just the triad, I end up with that. If I change it to the 7th chord, or a dominant chord, I have that. I keep saying 7th chord just to let you know, anytime I say 7, it's just shorthand for dominant. Again, we just call this a C7 chord. If you just see a 7 after the letter, the implication is a dominant chord with the minor 7th as opposed to a major 7th or other possibilities. All right, let's start the chorus. Chorus starts on a 5 chord. This is a triad. Here's your 7th. Triad, 7th chord. Okay, we move on. This next chord, by the way, is a D chord, but it's major. Now, I'm going to give you a little hint on this. This is extra because up till now we've only talked about the 5 chord, but there are other situations where you want to add the minor 7th too, and this is one of them. Okay, remember guys, anytime you see a 2 chord or a 3 chord or a 6 chord or a 7 chord, those chords tend to be minor, or the 7 chord is typically diminished. However, if you see a major, if you see a major 2 chord, a major 3, a major 6, as we see here, go ahead and add the minor 7th and make those dominant, because the truth is they are dominant. They're secondary dominants. That's major 2, major 3, major 6, and major 7. And so in this case, this D chord, I'm going to add a C to. Okay, so here's the first way, just as a triad. Here's the second way. Okay, sort of a big difference. And some of you are thinking, is it really a big difference? Trust me, all these little things add up and make a big, big difference overall. Remember that. Sometimes we forget that. We'll start falling into the trap of thinking, all these little things, do they really make a difference? And they do, I promise you. Even if the audience can't articulate it, they know the difference. All right, let's keep going. Okay, there's your C chord, just as a triad. Here it is as a 7th chord. There's your last C chord, the last 5-1 of the song, and there's a triad. There is your 5-7, the dominant chord. Okay, hopefully you hear the difference. Again, every time you see a 5 chord that's just a major triad, go ahead and add the 7th to it. You can't really go wrong with that, I promise you. All right, let's play it from the top and see how it goes. I will use not only the tip that I taught you today, but also the tip from last week about the major 7th on all the 1 chords, and we'll see how it sounds. There it is right there. So I can do that again, right? Okay, so there it is. And now you know that I'm not cutting and running if I make a mistake. Because trust me, I make mistakes too. And that was one of them. But there it is. All I did to the original music essentially was just change so that I was going to play dominant fives and major sevenths on the one chords. And you're starting to get a good sound. We'll talk about other things as well. There's an awful lot of other things we can do to make this better. And we'll get to that next time. I'll see you then.